All right, welcome. Today we are tackling something huge, something many of us do, but maybe don't fully get prayer. I mean, we're all told we should pray, right? But what's really happening when we do? What's the point of it all? So let's just cut right to the chase with the question that I think is on everyone's mind. If God is all powerful, if he's got this master plan for everything and already knows how it all ends, then why does he need us to pray? Seriously, does me asking for something actually do anything? Or is it all just a done deal? And look, this isn't some new radical question you're the first person to ask. Nope, this is a big one. It's a theological puzzle that people way smarter than me have wrestled with for centuries. But today, we're going to look at it through a really fascinating lens, a different framework that might just make it all click. Okay, so to even begin to find an answer, we have to get our heads around one half of this paradox first. And that is the idea of God's complete and total control, his sovereignty. I mean, the Bible is pretty clear on this point, right? It says God's in control of, well, everything. That he's got a master plan and nothing happens without him knowing about it or allowing it. He literally knows the beginning from the end. So that brings us right back to the big question. If the story is already written, what's our role? Where do we fit into that equation? And this is where we need to kind of flip the script. We might need a major shift in how we think about prayer. Just what if, the main point of prayer isn't what we've always thought it was? You know, the common view is that prayer is basically us trying to persuade God to do something for us, or trying to get him on board with our plan. But what if that's completely backwards? What if prayer isn't about getting God to do our will, but about us releasing his will right here on earth? It's a total shift from petition to partnership. Okay, so here's the absolute key to this whole thing. It's not that God needs our prayers, he's God, but he has chosen to work through us. Think about that. He's actually designed a system where he gives his people authority and works out his plan through them. And prayer? Well, that's the official way that partnership works. It's the mechanism. So, how does this actually work in practice? Well, think back to the beginning. God spoke, and creation happened. It's the same principle. God shares what he wants to do, his will, with his people. And then we, through prayer, speak that will into existence on earth. Our prayers are literally giving a voice to heaven's plans. Now, to really get a grip on how this mechanism works, there's this incredible picture, this amazing symbol from the Old Testament that lays it all out for us. We're talking about the altar of incense. Okay, so the ancient tabernacle. You can think of it like a physical roadmap showing how people could approach God. You started in the outer court, then you moved into the holy place, and then finally into the most sacred space of all, the Holy of Holies. That's where God's presence was. And where they put this altar is so important. It wasn't just stuck in a corner somewhere. No, it was right at the end of the holy place, just before you'd pass through the veil into God's immediate presence. Its location screams, "Hey, pay attention to me." And get this, the rule was ironclad. You could not, under any circumstances, go into the Holy of Holies without first stopping at the altar of incense. It was an absolutely non-negotiable step. No exceptions. So, what's with all the incense? What does it actually represent? Well, the Bible doesn't make us guess. It tells us straight up. That smoke, that fragrant cloud rising up, that's a direct symbol of the prayers of God's people rising up to him. Prayer is literally the gateway into his presence. And it gets even better, even more specific. The actual recipe for the incense, which was given by God, by the way, it's like a blueprint. It shows us the different parts, the very anatomy of what makes prayer powerful and effective. First up, ingredient number 1, stack day. Now, this was a type of gum that just flowed out of the tree on its own. It didn't need to be forced or cut. And that's a picture of prayer that isn't rigid or mechanical, but just flows freely, prophetically, because it's guided by the Spirit. Okay, next we have onycha. This came from a shellfish, and here's the cool part. Its fragrance depended entirely on what it ate. What a great picture, right? It represents prayer that gets its power, its substance, its authority from what it's been feeding on, which should be God's word. It's about praying his promises right back to him. Ingredient number 3 is galbanum. You could only get this gum after the plant's stem was broken. This one's a little tougher. It speaks to that element of brokenness, of personal cost, that comes with real intercession. It's about having a heart that breaks for the things God's heart breaks for, feeling his compassion for the world. And last but not least, frankincense. To get this one, you had to make a deep cut into the tree. And this represents a deep, unwavering faith. Not something superficial, but a profound trust that comes from the very core of who you are and supports every single prayer you make. So that's a really cool history lesson, but what does an ancient recipe have to do with us today? Well, it brings us right to our purpose, our actual function in the world as people who pray. Jesus gives us another amazing metaphor for this. He looks at his followers and says, "You are the salt of the earth." Now, we hear salt and we think flavor, right? But back then, salt's number one job was as a preservative. It stopped things from rotting. And that's exactly the idea. The presence of people who pray, intercessors, they act like a preserving agent on the planet. Their prayers are what make the world acceptable to God, inviting His grace and mercy, and literally holding back decay and judgment. You want a jaw-dropping example of this? Just look at the story of Abraham praying for Sodom. God was totally ready to destroy the city, but Abraham steps in, he stands in the gap, and he starts negotiating with God. And where did they land? What was the final number? After all that back and forth, God agreed that if he could find just 10 righteous people, 10, just 10 little bits of salt in that whole corrupt city, he would have spared everyone for the sake of those 10. Wow. Talk about the power and influence of a tiny minority. So let's just land the plane with this thought. What if this changes everything about how we see prayer? What if it's not just a list of requests we bring to God, not about getting things from Him, but about partnering with Him to bring His reality, His kingdom down to earth? That changes prayer from a simple request into a world-changing responsibility, a divine partnership that He, amazingly, has invited us to be a part of.